Good day, good morning. It is Saturday, May the 21st, 2011. And this episode of the Mobuku Chronicles is about the problem of animal protein. And I want to start off with I have mentioned in previous episodes that the nation state is disintegrating, and I have here some notes I took where I say that we have a failed political system, a failed legislative body, a failed judiciary, a failed administration, a failed monetary system, a failed banking system, a failed medical system, and a failed agribusiness, as well as being involved in a disintegrating or destroyed or an economy undergoing a process of destruction. All these are symptoms of a failed educational system, which is a problem of medicine, which is in turn a problem of nutrition. So we have to go to the source of these problems, which is nutrition on the one hand, but the source of all this is a deficiency of clear thinking stemming from the era of materialism. Now the word materialism, the way I use it, is that materialism means that people think, and I have mentioned this before, that the world in which we live in and we ourselves as human beings consist merely of atoms and molecules, and that we are elaborations of chemical and physical laws pertaining to the function of atoms and molecules. And therefore, if we cannot weigh and measure it and count it, it doesn't exist. This is a significant error of monumental proportions. So we have to change our way of thinking. However, this is a very difficult problem if we don't begin by changing our way of eating. Because, as I said, the source problem is, in addition to our erroneous habits of thought, it is our current way of eating, which is practiced by most people in the world, and if they don't, they do aspire to it. So I have here from my website a sort of a summary of what the problem of animal protein entails before I go into details. This is from a book which I highly recommend called The Essentials of Nutrition by Dr. Gerhard Schmidt, MD, and is published by Biodynamic Literature. And it came out in 1987. The points that Dr. Schmidt makes on with regard to the increasing consumption of animal protein is that it has more and more been shown to produce or facilitate critical diseases. Number two, the unrestrained consumption of protein, at least of animal protein, brings forth a distinct and increasingly distinct animalization and brutalization of humanity. That is, in those human beings that eat animal protein as their basic source of nourishment. With regard to the world economy, the high level of protein consumption is an irresponsible luxury for a small minority of the world's population. This presents a considerable social problem and an enormous source of danger for the entire world situation today. People are hindered from coming to the real facts of the protein question, which is of the greatest significance for the continued existence of human culture. The protein question is thus a problem of medical, social, and economic significance for the whole world. Now, to get down to some details here, we today are taught to eat animal protein as our main source of food. And so when it comes to America, I got some details. This is actually, as of 2007, the amount of per capita consumption of animal protein is 222 pounds per person per year, which is a significant amount. Of that, 87 pounds is the consumption of chicken, 66 pounds the consumption of beef, 51 pounds of consumption of pork, and 17 pounds of consumption of turkey. Now, when we look at the human being, the human organism, it tells us in no uncertain terms what the proportion of foods we should be taking into our bodies on a daily basis by the structure of our teeth. We have 32 teeth, 16 upper and 16 lower, and of those 16, 10 are molars, and 4 are incisors, and 2 are canine, and the canine are vestigial. And the canine are the ones that tell us how much protein we can eat. So if we break that down percentage-wise, it shows that we need a very small amount of protein, if we need any at all, to function. Animal protein, that is. We should get most of our protein from the grains and beans that are implied by the fact that we have the grinding teeth of the molars, which comprise the vast majority of the teeth in our mouths, and then we should use the incisors for cutting vegetables. So that's one aspect that the human organ that suggests that the human organism is designed to function most harmoniously and healthfully on a daily intake of food, which is comprised mainly of grains and vegetables and some beans, and addition, if necessary, of animal protein. Now, the amount of protein that we need on a daily basis for the average active adult is only 1 ounce, and we can get that adequately by eating whole grains and vegetables. In other words, it's completely erroneous to suggest that we need to eat all this animal protein to get our protein needs satisfied. We can get them satisfied more than adequately by eating whole grains and vegetables. And it's also bogus to suggest that we cannot get our essential amino acids if we don't eat beans and grains together. We can actually get essential amino acids by eating vegetables alone. So, now, let us look at what happens when we do consume on a daily basis as our main source of nourishment animal protein in the form of, beef and chicken and eggs and bacon and sausage and so forth. Well, what happens is since the human digestive system is not designed to cope with that amount of protein, animal protein, what happens is when it enters into the digestive system is it cannot be digested properly. So what it happens to it is it starts to putrefy. It putrefies in the intestines. And putrefaction is essentially a process whereby the meat starts to be attracts noxious bacteria which start to eat it, and in the process produce various toxins of one kind or another, and this sets up a very toxic environment in the intestinal tract. So as the meat putrefies over the course of time, then we begin to experience bad breath, body odor, foul-smelling excrement, and that's just for starters. So essentially the whole cosmetic industry as such is present because we eat animal protein. If we don't eat animal protein and we go to a whole grain and vegetable diet, then we don't have bad breath, we don't have body odor, we don't have foul-smelling excrement, and we don't need any cosmetics of any kind. Then we don't need it. So, on that note of putrefaction of the animal protein in our intestines, when John Wayne had his body autopsied, you know, he died of lung cancer, they found 20 pounds of putrefied animal protein in his intestines. Now then, the other problem is that we create this environment which is full of toxic bacteria, so-called bad guys, which are detrimental to the digestive system as a whole. And it turns out that the average American carries around in their intestines, you know, this bloated intestine that you see everywhere, 4.5 pounds by weight of these toxic bacteria. Not to mention worms and spirochetes and